Welcome back to another video at Joe's Toolbox Exchange. Today I want to talk about the new 2S series, and I want to compare it to the what I'm going to call third generation 4S. The reason I call it a third generation, and what I would say now is they're on the fourth generation, is they have redone this series quite a few times. So before we get started going over the specific details of the Toolbox, I want to give you a brief history of these series. Matco began the series at a 4S, a 5S, and a 6S. They later added a Rebel series and a 5S. They have since, in the past few years, discontinued the 5S. They have taken the 6S and really increased the build quality of that to kind of compare with that of an Epic in both price and size and build quality. And the 2S has gone to replace what was originally the 4S, and the 4S has sort of become what the 5S was. They've discontinued the 5S. So if you're looking at series from today's standpoint on the truck or online, you are going to see a 2S, a 4S, which does not look like this, and a 6S. It gets a little bit annoying. That's one of my biggest complaints with Matco, is them reconditioning these series and still calling them the same thing. Because the reason we have the series, with like a Snap-on, is when we say Masters, we know exactly what a Masters is. Although they have offered them in various sizes, it's always sort of the same build quality. Matco has switched the series names and drastically changed the build quality. So for this video, I think primarily this is if you're looking at a used box, because they do not manufacture this 4S anymore. This 4S is a 4225RP, and this 2S is a 2225-2B. And the MSRP of this box is $5,600. This does not have a current MSRP because it's no longer manufactured, but when they did manufacture it, it was just under $6,000. So they're very similar in price when they were new. I think the 4S overall, the third generation 4S, is a much better build. Why I call it a third generation is because originally this box was released as a Performance series, Pro-Formance. It dimensionally is the exact same. This is before they defined their series with the numbers. The Performance is most notably one big drawer, dimensionally the same, steel gauge the same, slide weight rating the same. Those boxes are a really good buy. If you're looking around, I tend not to buy them because they sell so cheaply. It's hard to make any money on them, and they sit for a while because a lot of people don't even consider them. But you can get a 2000s box under the flag Performance, and it's going to essentially be a third generation 4S, only without a power drawer, without two big drawers, and they generally sell for less than $1,000. So if your dealer has one on the truck used as a trade-in, or you're looking at Marketplace, Facebook, eBay, or something like that, that's something I'd really look for, especially if you're starting out, because you can pick them up for less than you can buy a used Snap-on cart for. They're a lot bigger and they're really robust. The second generation 4S is when they began calling them the 4S. It was basically exactly the Performance series. It looked the exact same, same tube, same wheels. The still one big drawer. Now what I'm calling here the third generation 4S is when they went to the two drawers here. So you have a big drawer and you have a wrench drawer, so a skinnier drawer on your top. These boxes sell usually for around $1,500 used. So they're a really solid box for the price. Personally, I have 3 of these, a couple of triples and a double. I think for the money, it's probably the best box you can buy right now. It's pretty close to Harbor Freight prices, $1,500 being what I sell them for, but if you shop around and spend a lot of time looking and maybe wheeling and dealing, you can find them for under $1,000. You can find them for around $1,000. So at a Harbor Freight US General box price, you can buy a USA made, much heavier professional box that's going to be 24 inches deep as opposed to the US General. And they often come with a power drawer. The easiest way when you're looking at this 4S to know if it has a power drawer is if it has the outlets right here, it almost always has a power drawer. It's pretty rare that they do one without the other, although sometimes they do. So if you're shopping, just make sure you ask. The 2S always comes with a power drawer. Matco doesn't offer a lot of variations in their boxes. Unlike Snap-on, when you order one, you can pick the drawer layout. You could do the entire box in these little 2-inch drawers if you wanted all the way down. They'll build it for you. But the Matco line, they're less build to order. They're more, this is what you get. It's always this. This box is gonna have 8 drawers. It always has 8 drawers. This box pretty much always has 10 drawers. I have seen some earlier models, what I would call the second generation 4S, being some additional drawers on this side. Those are not very common. I believe I have one of mine is that way. This is your power drawer in the 4S. As you can see, it's extremely similar to the power drawer in the 2S. When you're looking at the new 4S boxes, they are going to be deeper and longer, and the power drawer is going to be on the side. They're 57 inches and 28 inches deep. There's a couple little changes that they did add to the 2S, which I do like. They did the aluminum trim on the top. I don't exactly know why, but almost every 2S I've gotten in has some retting in the aluminum. I don't know what causes that, but this one does not have that issue. And the 4S is always going to have this plastic trim, although I'm not going to try to talk much about the new 4S. We'll do a side-by-side with the 2S and the current 4S down the road, but the older model 4Ss are always going to have a piece of plastic trim here. And it's similar to the snap-on where your metal is exposed on the top. We'll go over the dimensions here. This box is going to be 54 and a bit. Stand corrected. It's 56 inches by 24 and a half. They call it 25. It's a lot closer to 24 than it is to 25. And their new 2Ss are going to be 25 on the dot by 55. So dimensionally, they're almost identical. The height, as you can see, is about the exact same. This one's 42, and this one's about 41 and a half. Something I don't like on the 2S series is they switched to this mat. It doesn't hold up very well. It's a layered mat, and when you get a box cutter on top of it, a lot of times these layers will begin to separate and look really bad. I almost always have to replace the mats on the 2S. The 4S, I've seen boxes that are 20 years old, and the mats look just as good. They're like a hard plastic laminate material. Sometimes they will start to have a little bit of a bow in them. I found the plastic expands over time. If you just trim the edge back down, it'll tend to sit flat again. These are much more rugged in my opinion. Of all of the boxes, I always like the 4S mats at the top. They always clean up. I like that they put their logoing in the top of it, but they do offer that in the 2S also. Very similar locks. On the late model of this series, they did have the same cylinder as what's in the 2S. As you can see, the 2S lock is a little bit more ergonomic, where the old 4S lock is always going to be this hexagon shape. They usually come with 2 keys, although almost every box we get has one. So as you can see, we'll go over the dimensions on the top, but they are about the same. This box on the inside of the top drawer is going to be 49 and a half by 22 and a half, and this box here is 48 and a half by 23 and a half. So they're almost the same storage. They are both full extension drawers, so you get pretty close to the back of it here, although the 4S you get all the way to the back. I like this design a little bit more. It makes it easy to access the back part of your toolbox. It's really just a complaint on the top drawer though, because the rest of them do not quite have that issue because of the overlay. So you're a little bit closer here, but as you can see when you open the 4S, you can get all the way to the back of it. These 2Ss sell for about the same price as these used 4S boxes on the used market. These 2Ss I usually get 15 for. These 4Ss I usually get 15 for. This 2S is already sold. It's sold at 15, and this orange one is already sold. It's sold at 16. So this orange one was available when he came to look at this gray one, and he decided he wanted the 2S over it because of compatibility for down the road. I know this is definitely something to consider if you're looking to expand. You cannot get hutches, lockers, side cabinets, or anything for these older models anymore. So if you are thinking you're going to keep this box for a decade and add on to it, that is something to consider. But at $1,500, in my mind, it's something you buy, you use it for a few years, and then when you're looking to upgrade, you just upgrade to a bigger series. Maybe that's a 6S, or maybe it's a Masters. It's going to be something with more depth. It's pretty rare you see hutches and lockers added onto these things. When we do get them in with hutches and locker, we had a mint condition 2S. It was beautiful, like brand new. With the hutch and locker, it sold for $3,500, and it took us 5 months to sell it. So if you're looking around a marketplace, you could probably find a deal for closer to $3,000. with the 2S with hutch and locker. So if you're looking for a big setup like that, the 2S is really something to consider. But if you're looking for a standalone box, I would almost always steer people to the 4S. And when they come in here and shop around, that is what I say. The 4S is a better build quality. It feels a lot heavier. The drawers feel firmer, and it's the exact same price. So why not just buy the 4S? The handles are the exact same. They recycled the handles on them. The wheels are pretty similar. On weight rating, they're the same. Personally, I think the 4S wheels look a lot nicer with the spoke system in them. These are more reminiscent of what's on Matco's tool carts. It's kind of a cheap looking wheel. 2S, a lot of people like these two big drawers here. I personally don't. I like having a skinnier drawer for my wrenches. That's usually what this drawer ends up as, is going to be your socket drawer and your wrench drawer. There's really no reason to have this deep of a drawer for wrenches. Another thing that they did do that I think is a good decision is their 4S drawers were a little bit shallow. So this drawer sits at about 5.5 inches, while the 2S drawer sits at almost 7 inches. It's closer to 6 3/4. The reason this is a good addition is because Milwaukee's big 8 and 12 amp hour batteries, when they're on a charger, they kilter when they slide in, and they will not close in your 4S. A lot of people, especially mechanics, are not using batteries that big. They're using 4 amp hour or 5 amp hour batteries, and those do work just fine in this box. But I myself have some 12 amp hour batteries, and it's annoying because I have to leave the drawer open to charge those, where this drawer will accept all of those models. I also like on the 2S that they have a space underneath the rail. That's a lot nicer because most chargers have a wasted space on them. So this way you can actually slide it under and still utilize the rest of the drawer space, where the 4S actually rides on the bottom. It's the same, giving you the same outlets for both of them. You have your 2 USB ports and your 520 volt 15 amp standard outlets, and they both have a breaker in them. They're very similar design. They even recycled the same wire guide system in both boxes. The part number is the same for both of them. This box is fused separately on the top. Well, it has a cord separately on the top. So these outlets and 2 USBs on it are going to be run from a cord on this side, and the power drawer is going to be run from a standard cord on this side, just standard 120 volt. This box has both of them coming out the same side. So it's a little bit harder to tell without beeping them out what one goes to what. But this does matter to some people, as they like to put them into separate outlets. If they're going to be running something heavy on this drawer, like maybe a bench grinder that they have sitting on top of their box, or a drill press or a lathe or something like that that pulls a really high current, they're going to want to fuse that separately to their breaker than their charging drawer. That way, every time that they turn the drill press on, it's not flipping a breaker. Even though chargers pull a really low current, when you have enough of them combined and they are charging their batteries, you are looking at an amp or 2 in current. So if you combine that with something large like a drill press or a lathe, you're talking 15 amps. That will blow most standard breakers. This is something that is nice about their boxes. They do have the 2 power cords. The build on the bottom is almost the exact same. Matco's very proud of this system here, this T system. It adds a lot of structural integrity to the top of the box. You can really weight down these drawers without getting much flex. Snap-on does not have this in their double banks. In their triple banks, they offer it on the side, but it's not really more of a structural point. It's just to give somewhere for the slide system on the right to attach to. On the 2S boxes, they have it on all of their series, the center beam, this T-beam they call it. They're both assembled in the USA with globally sourced parts. This box was more USA manufactured than this one. This one has a lot more foreign parts in it than the Matco 4S did. A lot of brands have moved that way to having more globally sourced parts, especially Matco, as most of their tools are not manufactured here anymore. It's easy to tell with the series when you're shopping online because they always badge them. So the first and second generation, what I'll call them, 4Ss, had a Matco logo here with the 4S as one badge, similar to how this 2S is badged. While the third generation, my favorite generation, the 4Ss, had them separate. Sometimes you see a Matco logo here, sometimes here, sometimes you just see it on the drawer. They do have that logo in black and chrome. Usually it matches the drawer trim, this one does not. They stamp on their logo on the bottom drawer here, along with the badge for the power drawer. They never offered either of those features in the 4S. So even though the 2S and the 4S are very similar, I think the 4S is a heavier box. It is a better box. The MSRP on the 2S is almost exactly what the 4S was. You see this with some brands as prices go up with inflation. In order to kind of soften that blow to the end user, they'll rebrand some of the stuff. So instead of having a 4S go up in $1,000 or $2,000, what they've done is made a new 4S that is $4,000 more, and made a 2S that kind of replaced it, that lost a lot of that build quality and steel gauge to, like I said, soften the blow of the inflation, I believe. I like the drawer layout of the 2S on this side a little bit more as you get variable drawer depths. The 4S is going to be the same all the way here until the bottom. These drawers are a little bit small. They'll take a standard plier rack on end with pliers in them though, so that's, as long as that can fit, in my mind, that's a deep enough drawer. It's not very good for blow mold cases. We'll go over the drawer depth now for all of them. The top two drawers on the 2S are going to be the exact same at about 4.5 inches. Next, you're going to have your smallest drawer, which is just under 2, 1.75, and that's pretty standard for all of them. Even Snap-on uses that same dimension. The next drawer down is going to be about 4.5. The next one down, 4.5. And the next one down, about 4.5. So you get some deeper drawers on this side, along with a deep drawer on your bottom right below the power drawer, bottom left, excuse me, and you're about 9.5 inches here. So these can fit most aerosol cans. Don't have one laying around, but they can fit like brake cleaner and stuff, and the same as a Snap-on, where the Matco 4S order style cannot take those. And then your power drawer, the last one here, is about 7 inches on the dot, like we discussed earlier. Next we'll move on to the 4S here with the dimensions. You're looking at about 4.5 inches on your top drawer, almost 2.5 inches on your wrench drawer. Your power drawer is going to be just under 6. Your skinny drawer below that is going to be about 2.5. And this drawer is going to be 9. These are all going to be 2.5 also, as they're the same as this drawer. And your bottom one is going to be just under 6. You gain an extra drawer with the 4S, although there are a lot skinnier. In my mind, I'd rather have more skinny drawers than big drawers, unless you're using a lot of blow molds, which I know some of you guys are these days, keeping all your tools inside the factory packaging. The tumbler system is very similar. You can rekey them the same. The part number for the new locks are compatible with both, so if you buy a cart or something and you want to match the cylinders, you can. It's the same cylinder in both. I like that the 4S, their wall system is very similar to the 2S, only on the 2S it's much higher because it doesn't have that mat, so you see damage very frequently on this top edge. This is a pretty far lip to be sticking up. This often is banged and dented out, especially when you strap them down on trailers. You'll see a good bend here often. I've never seen that issue on a 4S. And this front lip I really don't like on the 4S. It's an angled piece of metal. It's kind of in the way. I've seen a lot of people make tops for these, and they'll, like myself, will miter a piece of butcher block so that way it covers that lip, because this lip is always damaged. It's always got wear and tear from either dragging heavy things across it and scraping this edge. Where the 2S is similar to a Classic, where it has a lip on the back and sides, but it's flush on the front. I think that's a slightly better design. Overall, I think they're both solid boxes. At an MSRP though of $5,600, I would really not consider a 2S new. Maybe if your dealer is willing to work with you on that price and get it down by 20 or 30% and get you a great financing rate, maybe it carries on a truck account of 0%. It's beginning to approach the point I would consider it. I still think there's better options for that price. You know, on Marketplace, you can find a box like this, a better build quality for, like I said, below $1,500, and almost all sellers will accept PayPal these days. So you put your credit card in there and still get some sort of financing. You know, a truck account's running at 24, 25% APR. That's credit card rates. So you might as well put it on a credit card and get the cash back, and also save $5,000 in the process. And they still offer parts for the 4S. I think they always will. Matco's been pretty good about that. I've had old series from the 80s. They still offer slides. Unlike Cornwell, you know, when Matco changes their series around on us, they still do offer service parts. Cornwell, for example, when they discontinue a series after a few years, you can't even get slides for it anymore. This is going to be 2 boxes side by side. I'm going to catch them from this side so you can see they're almost the same. If you want to show under the box the frame on them, I think I've skipped that in some other videos. But you're gonna have a pretty hefty steel frame on the bottom, which is how it's able to take such a high weight rating. It's going to have these 3 beams across it with the largest beam in the front. And then if you want to move down to the 2S, it's almost identical, only you have a rolled trim piece on the front. I believe this trim piece here is replaceable, as this is sometimes called a kick plate. If you pull this off, I'm sure that they offer a replacement part for it. Like I said, down the road, I'll try to do a video where I'm comparing the 2S to the 4S, and maybe I'll compare the 2S to the Classic. I know starting out, this is a lot of people's first box. It's kind of the cheapest full-size box offered on any of the trucks right now. Unless you're talking about the Mac. Mac has some cheaper boxes, but I would steer away from those heavily. This is kind of between this, a lot of people between this and a Classic series, as Matco and Snap-on are the most common trucks we have in the US right now. I would say if you're going to consider buying a used box though, I would steer away from a 2S. The price on them at $1,500, I don't think this box is worth $1,500 personally. That is what they sell for consistently though. Where a 4S, these will sit longer at $1,500. So a lot of people are willing to wheel and deal on these 4Ss. It's pretty rare you see add-ons for them. The stainless tops I've only ever seen twice on a 4S here in the shop, and this box we probably sold 45 of. This is a really common model. I like to have the 4S. I try to steer a lot of people to it. You know, if they're coming for a cart, like we reviewed in some of the other videos, like this cranberry one in the corner, this Snap-on is going to sell for $1,500 also. So for the same price, you can get a full-fledged box with a solid work surface, a power drawer, of 55 inches instead of a cart that's at 40. They roll pretty decent. There's no suspension in the wheels, so if your floor is uneven, both the 2S and 4S are going to have a wobble in them. This is a common issue with almost all lower end boxes, like a Classic is going to have that same issue. So it's not really a gripe, just something to be aware of. If you move this box around a lot, you're going to get that chugga 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 that you see in the plastic wheel systems. So I hope you guys were able to learn something here and maybe reconsider buying a 4S. And until next time, thank you. I'm going to go ahead and add this in now. I was going to post the video and I forgot to mention, I did mention that they're the same weight rating, but that specific weight rating is 140 pounds per set of slides. So both boxes are 140 pounds per set of slides. I would like to point out that the bottom drawer on the right on this box and the bottom left drawer on this box are going to be double slid. These both are going to be double slid, and this one is going to be double slid. The rest of them are all single slides, even their power drawer single slide. It's going to be like that the same on this box. This drawer down here, single slide, single slide. There's no way to add extra slides. Unlike a Snap-on, you can go ahead and add a second slide. So I'd like to point out that both these boxes, the way that they are is the way that you get them. There's no customability here, and they're 140 pounds. So you got 280 in your big drawers, and the rest of them you got 140. Thank you.